All right, today we are looking at Dr. Fate, number 4 on the Justice League Unlimited set. He has the keywords Justice League, Justice Society, Future, Mystical, and Past. Putting this video together was pretty difficult because there is so much versatility in those keywords for this low-cost, highly effective character that there are just so many team builds you can include him on. What we're going to do today is highlight 3 of those builds, one of them being a named keyword, and then also 2 of the generic keywords. But there were so many teams as I was going through the builds that I could use him on. So I'm going to give you a sampling of how we're going to use multiples of him on a Justice League team, and then just 2 examples of the generic theme teams you could put him on. But really, there were so many other options, so you should go out, look at how you could fit him on to some other builds. His first trait is, during a force construction, you may only add Dr. Fate for 10 points if you also have a Dr. Fate starting at 65 points on your starting force. So that first part of that trait, let's look at that. That means you need one 65-point Dr. Fate, and then you can add as many other Dr. Fates for 10 points as you want. On the builds today, we are going to be using 7 Dr. Fates. So that's 1 at 65 points, and then 6 more at 10 points each. So that 7-point squad would come in at 125 points. I like that point value because it gives enough room to make a solid competitive build around it and gives a lot of Dr. Fate. So you'll have a lot of chances to use his other trait that we're going to look at in a second. One of the builds we're going to show is going to be with 5 Dr. Fates, which would come in at 105 points. Which is also pretty good because the second part of that first trait is for all characters with this trait, you may, if you have 2 to 4 characters named Dr. Fate on your force, action total +1. If you have 5 or more such characters, action total +2. So on one of the builds today, I'm going to use 5 of them so that we can still get a +2 action total. Dr. Fate's other trait is Justice League Unlimited. At the beginning of your turn, roll a d6. On a result of a 6, remove an action token from another friendly character with the Justice League keyword that's 100 points or less. In a competitive tournament environment, you're under a time limit. So just being able to roll 7 times at the beginning of each of your turns, even if you had no other Justice League Unlimited, you have 7 of those Dr. Fates, it eats up time. The idea is if you have multiple rules, hopefully you can at least land a couple 6s to pull tokens off of your figures. One of the builds we're going to have is going to be a Justice League build with characters that are under 100 points. His trait kicks in at 100 points or less. So the idea is even if you use him more in a support capacity and you have Justice Leaguers that are your main attackers that are 100 points or less, hopefully you land a couple of those rolls so you keep taking tokens off of your main attackers. If your main attackers have willpower or indomitable, then you only need to land that 6 every 2 turns in order to take a token off so they can keep going every single turn. Okay, let's take a look at his powers and abilities. He has a 6 range single target. He comes in at 65 points and then 10 points. The 65 points you have 5 clicks of life. At 10 points you have just that single click. 10 point and 65 point both start with the exact same values. He starts with a 8 movement phase in, 10 attack with TK, 17 defense with energy shield, and a 3 attack with enhancement. On the 65 point line, He moves on to some clicks of sidestep, some clicks of incapacitate. He keeps that energy shield throughout his dial. The middle of his dial is prob. He comes with the Mystics team ability and the Justice League team ability. The Justice League team ability is when this character is given a move action, modify speed +1. The Mystics team ability is each time this character takes damage from an opposing character's attack, after resolutions, deal the attacker 1 penetrating damage, and you cannot copy that team ability. So in action, that phase-in is going to be great, and he flies. The TK can be useful, especially when we're running multiples of them, because you can use some of those Dr. Fates to TK your main attackers out. You can use the flight to carry your main attackers if they are non-flyers. But really, we're going to be using him for the enhancement to boost up the range attacks of your main guys, and for the TK. The 10 points is great because we could also use those 10 pointers as tie-up pieces, since it's not a big point of investment. And if your opponent doesn't have invincible, should they attack and kill those 10-point Dr. Fates, they're going to be taking the Mystic's damage. So if they do happen to hit the tie-up piece, then they're going to be taking 1 damage, which for 10 points is okay. So just some basics on how you can use these multiple Dr. Fates with your main attackers. If your main attackers have any type of run-in shot or hypersonic or a move and attack type of ability, they could move into this enhancement box to make their attacks. So for example, we could take this run-in shot from that position, so you can move in there, run-in shot, picking up 3 enhancements from the adjacent Dr. Fates. Then she has sidestep, so she could sidestep away to then open up that same enhancement setup for the next move and attack ability. So then you can move your next character in there. So on that kind of setup, your enhancement box stays stationary, and your move and attack characters move in there, move out, make their attacks. If you have somebody that is not a flyer as the move and attack person, when they move into that enhancement box, take their shot, you could use one of your Dr. Fates then to carry them out to open up the space for the next move and attack. Now another way you can use the multiple Dr. Fate setup is you would have 5 actions here just without any leadership, because you get the +2 plus your 3 base actions on a 300-point build. So if you had this type of setup where Shredder is moving in, you could take 3 actions to move your setup for an enhancement box. Then you could also TK your last piece there. You could leave this enhancement box as it is, because you could get your move and attack characters right here to pick up 3 enhancements. But we could also TK a Dr. Fate into that last spot as your setup. Then you could give the last action of your turn onto one of the Dr. Fates to move in here as a tie-up. Since he can phase, he can go right through all those characters and the blocking, and he can base up Shredder if you wanted to do it that way. That way you can use the next turn to clear, but if it was me, I would base him up just in case I don't land all my attacks. Then next turn, maybe he's KO'd this Dr. Fate, which is fine. But then he's still in that position where I want him so that I can take advantage of this box. On this type of setup, you could move your move and attack person in there, especially if they have a sidestep or something to get them out of that box. She can make her attack, sidestep away. This Dr. Fate then is free to be used as an attacker. The 6 range is decent, The 10 attack is also decent. The 3 damage with enhancement around it becomes a 6 damage, which is very good. So then he could try to land a 10 attack shot there. Then your last movement attack, your secondary attacker or your co-main attacker, can move into that box and take a follow-up shot. You could even leave it in this type of setup afterwards if that character is still there. On this team setup, we're going to use 7 Dr. Fates, one at 65 and the rest at 10, to bring that total to 125. We're going to use Booster Gold at 80, Speedy at 45, Wonder Twins at 25. This gives you a Justice League theme team with a plus 10 bonus and still gives you 25 points left to complete your build with equipment, map bonuses, whatever you choose to put in there for 25 points. The way we're going to use Speedy on this team is for his Quantum Arrow trait. It's power once per game, choose a square within range and line of fire, then Speedy can use Pulse Wave at no cost as if he occupied that square. He also has Leap, Climb, and Run and Shot, and he has the Justice League Unlimited trait. Again, he's going to be coming in at 45 points, starting with that Leap, Climb, Run and Shot, 6 range, 7 movement, 11 attack with Energy Explosion, 17 defense with Energy Shield, and the 3 damage. We would make sure that the Dr. Fates are around him to give him 3 enhancements to get that damage value up to 6. So we really wouldn't be using Energy Explosion, but it's always good to have that just in case the opponent has a team that's all grouped up together so that you can Energy Explode to increase the total amount of characters that you have the chance of hitting. For Booster Gold, he also has the Justice League Unlimited. We have the crowd control, which we will make use of, which is Barrier. Barrier is free, but only to generate 2 markers. 2 markers can still close off lines of fire to you. So free Barrier is great. 1 or 2 markers is all that you need a lot of times in order to mess up the lines of fire your opponent's trying to get. He has Incap and Knockback, and then he has Perplex, Prob. When he uses Perplex to target himself, he can increase the damage or value except for damage by +2. As you see on his stats, he has a 10 movement run and shot with 6 range, 2 targets. He has that special attack power with a 10 attack. He has 18 defense with Indomitable. He has a 3 damage with the special damage power, the Perplex and Prob, and the ability to boost his own up by 2. Okay, plus that knockback on his special attack. His invulnerability is a good reducer, and if we wanted to try to make sure he hits, he will be perplexing up his own attack value to get that to a 12. Again, we're going to make sure that he's around 3 Dr. Fates so that his 3 damage becomes a 6 damage. And the Wonder Twins are on this team to take advantage of their free. Choose a dark blue standard power and a purple standard power, and the Wonder Twins can use that. So they already are going to have Barrier and Shape Change. So they'll be choosing Willpower, and they have Smoke Cloud with a sidestep and 4 range. So we can use them to Smoke Cloud, or we can use them to Barrier. On this particular team, I'd probably use them as a barrier piece, choosing Willpower, so that they can throw out that barrier multiple times to keep your team protected. They are not flyers, so Dr. Fate could carry them into position. Of course, they wouldn't be able to do any costed action that time, but then on round 2, they can throw out Barrier. On round 3, they choose Willpower, and they can throw out Barrier again. So they can cover you for 2 turns in a row if you take advantage of the carry with Dr. Fate. Okay, let's take a look at what the initial turn could look like for setup here. You'll see that we have all the Dr. Fates across the front row. I would leave the 65 pointer behind as we move the other ones up. We have Wonder Twins and Speedy in the back row. Since they both do not fly, they're going to be being carried, so we can leave them back there. Booster Gold is a flyer, and we are going to put him on the front row so that he can get the most movement on turn 1 to set up for attacks on turn 2. Okay, the Dr. Fates, since we have 5 or more, we get a +2 to our action totals. So we got 5 actions on this 300-point team. Okay, action 1, I would use this Dr. Fate to carry Speedy into position. Dr. Fate has the JLA team ability, as does Booster Gold. So when they're given a move action, they get a +1 to movement. So Dr. Fate has an 8 movement. He'll be doing a move action and carrying. So he would +1 from JLA, -1 because he is carrying a character. So he can move 8, carrying Speedy. We'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He can move up to this row. We'll put him right here. And we will place Speedy right in front of him. Now, on this example, this is just to demonstrate how far up they can move. So if you had an opponent that has range or movement attacks where they can reach you, of course, then you would adjust this back so that they stay protected. But I want to show how far they can reach. Okay, the next Dr. Fate will do the same, carrying the Wonder Twins. We will move those Wonder Twins and Dr. Fate up next to the other one. We'll place the Wonder Twins behind to keep them a little bit protected, because next turn we're going to want to take advantage of their barrier. They can't barrier this turn because they were carried, so we'll keep them a little bit protected. Then next turn they can sidestep to get a line of fire to a clear square, and then put up their barrier for protection. Alright, so we have 3 actions left. Booster Gold is going to move next. He has a 10 movement with the JLA, so he could move 11. We're going to move him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 to this row. We're going to put him right here. This Dr. Fate will move next. He's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put him right in that square. And last action will be this Dr. Fate. We're going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Put him there next to Booster Gold. We will activate Booster Gold's free to place a barrier. On this one, there's blocking terrain over here and blocking terrain here. We're going to do a diagonal to help section that part off. Okay, with this kind of placement, now next turn we're ready for all these Justice League Unlimited rules to occur, hopefully taking some tokens off of these guys. But even without taking the tokens off, the barrier would go away. Wonder Twins could sidestep so that they can barrier up again at the end of the turn. But we have all this enhancement to help out Speedy and to help out Booster Gold if they can take a shot from where they're at. What I would do though is, depending on where your opponent's moved, I would use Speedy's once per game power, which is his trait. Choose a square within range line of fire, then Speedy can use Pulse Wave at no cost as if he occupied that square. He has a range of 6. So remember, with Pulse Wave you're going to half range, so we want to make sure that we don't hit our guys. So he could go anywhere out here 6 squares. For example, he could place right there, use that as the square. 1, 2, 3. So our team is out of the pulse wave. This would pulse wave from here. Preferably, we're going to try to get an opponent as a single target, because then we can use the enhancement of these 3 characters to make it a pulse wave with an 11 attack and 6 damage. Now, even without that pulse wave, if your opponent was out of range where you can't make that work, you could just barrier up and use this turn to clear, but you would have at the beginning of your turn that Justice League Unlimited. On this particular build, we have 9 chances to try to roll those 6s. If we could get tokens off of 3 of these guys, that would be great, because then they can move to set up where they need to be, so that the 2 run-in shot characters can then run in shot to make sure they're adjacent to the Dr. Fates and get those enhancements. Even if we could get 2 tokens off, or 3, that would be great, and would still allow you to be boosting up Booster Gold to a 5 damage, and the same with Speedy to a 5 damage, even if you can get 2 of those enhancements cleared. Another cool thing you can do with all these Dr. Fates is you can use the 10 pointers as tie-up pieces. Remember, they have Mystics team ability, so your opponent, if they do KO one of those 10 points, you're basically paying 10 points and your opponent takes a click of damage. But in addition to that, when you have them in that tie-up, they have TK. All the Dr. Fates have TK on their starting click. So with this type of setup where we have these 2 Dr. Fates tying up Shredder, even though they're maxed out, you can use this Dr. Fate to TK, because really I'm not going to use that Dr. Fate as an attacker here in this type of situation. He's there for enhancement, but then that TK can be used to clear this Dr. Fate out of line of fire for your 2 ranged attackers. So you could TK him back to any one of these squares that they both have line of fire to, and that clears it up so then Booster Gold can do his attacks. And same with Speedy, picking up all these enhancements. So a tie-up, the TK to move them out of there, no breakaway roll or anything needed, and then that frees the line of fire for your main guys. Alright, this team setup is a +9 future team using 7 Dr. Fates, one of them at 65, the rest at 10. Arno Stark at his 90-point value, and Booster Gold at 80 points. That leaves 5 points for a map bonus or a piece of equipment. With that +9 future, you should be able to get map choice. We're going to focus just on the open-in round or 2 to show how you can use the Dr. Fates as support for enhancement on a attacker. So we have Arno Stark as our main attacker with his super far reach, and we have Booster Gold for his free barrier and for the secondary attacker. This type of team, if they were to go up against a non-ranged team like what we have going on across the board with some Shredders and Lex and White Witch, this would be very bad for your opponent to be looking at across the board. Okay, let's take a look at how the opening moves could go. We're going to focus in on Arno Stark's movement power. He has a pretty cool defense power too, but we're just going to look at the offense today. He has sidestep. Then he also has, at the beginning of your turn, you may choose that until your next turn, he has immobile. If you do, until your next turn, he has range value of 12, improved targeting, characters, elevation, and hindering. The outdoor blocking was changed by Wizkids to be removed from there. And he has range, make a ranged attack, When he does, all opposing characters within range and line of fire become targets, and each hit target is dealt 1 penetrating damage instead of normal damage. What we're going to be paying attention to is the first part of that power, the sidestep, and then the improved targeting and the range of 12. As you see on the back of his card, we have him at that top dial, which is going to be an 8 movement with the sidestep, 11 attack, an 18 defense, and a 4 damage outwit. On Booster Gold, we are going to focus in on his trait, Barrier. Barrier is free, but only to generate 2 markers. And his damage power, Perplex, Prob. When he uses Perplex to target himself, he may instead modify combat value except damage +2. We're going to be using that Barrier as free to provide some coverage for our team. And we're going to use the Perplex if we need it, and the Prob if we need it. Okay, he also has Justice League Unlimited, just like the Dr. Fates. So at the beginning of your turn, you have some chance to remove tokens from other friendly Justice League characters that are 100 points or less. So at the beginning of the turn, we're going to have 8 characters that will be rolling to try to take a token off of each other. His values are the 10 run-in shot with a 10 attack, 18 defense, 3 damage, 6 range, and 2 targets. On Dr. Fate, we are going to focus on his TK, his flight ability, and his enhancement. He also has the Justice League Unlimited, so there's going to be a lot of rolls at the beginning of the turn, hopefully taking some tokens off of characters. We're going to be playing one of him at 65 points and 6 of them at 10 points. They're going to have a 6 range, 8 movement with phase-in. They're a flyer, so they could carry. They have the 10 attack with TK, 17 defense with energy shield, 3 damage with enhancement. Mystic's team ability and the JLA team ability. Now, since we do have 7 of them on the team, we can take advantage of the action total +2. So on this 300 point build, that means we will have a 5 action total. An example of what your opening turn could look like with this team, we would use Arno Stark's movement and sidestep. So he has an 8 movement, and then he can sidestep 2. So we will move him 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and he will sidestep 2. The Dr. Fates in the front row, we're going to use all 3 of them. They have an 8 movement and the JLA team ability, which gives +1 to movement when they do a move action. So they're going to move. 8 + 1 is 9. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. We're going to go right there. Booster Gold has a 10 movement with the JLA team ability. On this turn, we are going to move him up to the hindering. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. He'll go right here. We'll take advantage of that free barrier to place 2 markers. His range is 6, so he can go out to here. He sees this square, so he'll place a barrier to help protect Stark until the next turn. Now on this particular matchup, he really wouldn't need that protection because the other team can't reach him anyway. But I'm just demonstrating that so you can see how you can use that barrier to section him off. Stark then would be picking up the 3 enhancements from those Dr. Fates, so it would make his 4 damage into a 7. He would have a 12 range on his next turn, so at the beginning of his next turn he would choose to not be moved, so he can become immobile, which then allows him to have a 12 range with improved targeting, characters, elevation, and hindering. So from right where he's at, those barrier markers would go away, and he would be able to shoot all the way to the back of the map, going right through the characters or anything else, so he could have his choice of targets. With a 7 damage, he should be able to one-shot any one of those characters that he wants. Okay, on this team build, we're going to be using Mojo with 5 Dr. Fates and Wendigo. It would be a mystical team with +7, coming in at 295 points. So you'd still have 5 points left, maybe for a map bonus. Let's take a look at Mojo's card. What he does is he has a trait behind the scenes. Mojo can't be targeted by opposing characters 5 or more squares away. So that trait gives him some protection from the range attackers and makes it so that your opponent has to get into close proximity to be able to try to attack Mojo. He'll be working as our main attacker, and Wendigo will be there as a deterrent should people try to move into that 5 range. His second trait is whenever a character misses all targets of their attack, give Mojo a board token. Free, remove 2 tokens to either place Mojo anywhere on the map or make an attack. We'll be using that if the situation arises where we do want to jump him across the board. We could send out the 10-point Dr. Fates to be the ones that are trying to bait the attack from your opponent. Those Dr. Fates are a 19 from range because of their energy shield. If you can get them into some hindering or other ways to try to get your opponent to attack them where they're trying to get a high roll, hopefully you can get a couple tokens on Mojo. Again, that just gives you an option dependent on what you see across the map from you, but that wouldn't be the main strategy that we go with on this team. Okay, Mojo also has his special movement power, which is Sidestep. When an opposing character uses Sidesteps after resolution, Mojo may move up to 2 squares. So we will be taking advantage of his Sidestep, and should your opponent use theirs, then we will be using the second part of that power to move Mojo a little bit more. Okay, you'll notice he has improved movement characters. Let's take a look at the back of his card. He has a 7 range single target. We are going to be playing him at his 175 point value, which means he starts with that special movement, which is the sidestep, and then the move 2 if your opponent does their sidestep. He has an 11 attack with Pensai. He has 18 defense, and he has a 4 damage with Prob. We are going to be using the at least 3 of the Dr. Fates to be around him to increase that 4 damage through enhancement to a 7. So 7 penetrating, 11 attack is decent, and with Prob on top of that, then it becomes very high probability that you can land an attack. Alright, Wendigo's on this team as our safety net and as a deterrent for your opponent should they try to come in close. He has a trait which is Sidestep, but only if a character has a wounded token. When an opposing character takes damage from an attack, give that character a wounded token if they don't have one. When a character heals, remove their wounded tokens. His second trait is Colossal Stamina, Steel Energy. When Wendigo uses Steel Energy, he may heal past his starting line. He will be on his lowest point value, which has both of these special powers. His special movement is Charge Flurry. When Wendigo ends his movement after resolutions, he may make a close attack, but only to target a character with a wounded token. So in this particular team, Mojo has that 7 range. Should he be able to hit somebody, they get a wounded token. Then Wendigo could just move and then make an attack on that character after resolutions. Okay, he could also charge Flurry. So should somebody try to get into the 5 squares they have to be able to target Mojo, then we can charge Flurry. They get the wounded tokens, then all of those other things start to trigger. Wendigo's special defense power is Stop Invuln. If no opposing character has a wounded token, do not stop turn in the dial due to stop. Okay, he'll be started on that stop click. Hopefully he can hit somebody, steal energy, and go above the stop click. And then activate that stop click again should people start attacking him. Let's take a look at the back of his card. He'll be starting on the stop click at his 15 point value with 8 movement, 11 attack, 17 defense, and 3 damage with exploit. Remember, he has that charge Flurry. So charge could be a 4 movement. He is a giant, so he'll have giant reach 2, and the charge gives him 4 movement, then a 2 reach. 11 attack with a Flurry gives him 2 chances to try to hit that. He has the steal energy, so hopefully on the first time he's going in to make an attack, you can get him healed up past that stop click. Alright, let's take a quick look at one type of scenario so you see how this team would work together. We'll pick this battle up a couple moves in. So there's been some movement of characters across the map. You see there's a big block of elevated terrain there in between Shredder and Lex, separating them from our team of the 5 Dr. Fates, Mojo, and Wendigo. In order to see how these giant characters work, let's take a quick look at what that means in the powers and ability card. Okay, so we're going to have giant reach of 2 for both of these characters, and as you see there, what it says is when this character makes a close attack, instead of choosing an adjacent character or characters, if able, for targeting, you may use improved targeting, hindering, and target characters within X squares and line of fire. So these guys are going to have giant reach of 2, so they can target characters within 2 squares and line of fire. Great size also gives the improved movement, elevation, hindering, outdoor blocking, and the 2 squares with the arrow, or the 2 circles with the arrow, and improved targeting, 2 squares with the arrow. Then it goes on to say, lines of fire drawn to or from this character are not blocked by elevated terrain or outdoor blocking terrain, and are hindered only if the line of fire is drawn to a square of hindering terrain that includes the target protected pulse wave. It's the first part of that sentence that's important for what we're going to do. Lines of fire to and or from this character are not blocked by elevated terrain. So in this kind of setup, if we wanted to lead in with Wendigo, he can charge 4. So he can pick this square as his single square to move from. He'll go 1, 2, 3, 4, and he would place that square there. Then he has giant reach without the elevation coming into play. So he can reach right over this elevation to flurry into Lex. So charge, flurry right there. Okay, on Mojo, we could use his sidestep, and he could carry, there's a Dr. Fate behind him here. He can sidestep up in front of these Dr. Fates, carrying the one that was next to him, so that he would then have 3 adjacent Dr. Fates for that attack. He has 7 range. He can shoot right over the elevation he has enough range to target either one of these characters. Again, that Dr. Fate would be giving him enhancement, boosting up Mojo's 4 damage to a 7, and he'd be swinging with an 11, penetrating with a prob behind it. So 11 attack, 7 penetrating damage would be enough to KO a lot of characters or get them down to their last few clicks, where Wendigo then could do his charge in. Or like we just did here, you could start with Wendigo charging in, attacking, stealing energy, healing up, and then Mojo comes in to finish off some characters. If you had characters with stop clicks across there from you, then you would want to start with your heaviest hitter. So Mojo would move in, knock somebody onto a stop click. Wendigo then can charge flurry. With that flurry, you could get through 2 stop clicks. Alright, I think this team build has a lot of potential. I like the giant and colossal characters for the movement and for the reach and for being able to shoot over things. So I hope you enjoyed the video today. We looked at 3 different builds with Dr. Fate. We looked at how you can use multiples of them in all kinds of different ways. Remember, that was just 3 options. As I was making the video, there were so many other teams that you could use him on. So use your creativity, see how you could use them. Comment down below, let me know what your plans are, how you use them. If you do use them in some live events, let me know how that turned out. I think there's a lot of potential there, both in a fun environment and in competitive builds. So I'm eager to see how some of the different players use the Dr. Fate, how many of them they're going to field. Really curious to see if anybody's just going to field a whole team of Dr. Fates and what that looks like. Should just be some craziness to throw into a fun event. All right, hope you enjoyed the video. Like and comment, and thanks for watching. Check it out. If you dig what we do, go ahead and like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.